Welcome to the YouTube Creators Hub podcast, where we help you conquer the internet one video at a time. We cover everything from how to start a YouTube channel to how to make a video go viral. And now, here's your host, the one and only Dusty Porter.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. First and foremost, I just want to thank you guys so much for the positive feedback that I've been receiving on the show. I've been getting emails and tweets and things like that from people saying, I really appreciate the show. It's really helping me grow my channel, or it's helping me be motivated to start my channel. So I really do appreciate that. Don't forget to go on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. It helps us grow the show and it can help us expand into other categories. So thanks again for all of that. Don't forget also briefly, I'm going to mention to run on over to our Patreon page and support us just by donating a couple bucks a month, and this will get your show, your channel featured, as well as a shout out on the show and a place permanently on our website. So we would really appreciate that. And if you're a book reader or like to listen to books, go on over to Audible. Our Audible link will be in the show notes here, and you can click on that link and it helps us out, and you don't have to do anything except enjoy a nice book. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to jump on into the interview portion of this show. It is with Mr. MotoMan himself, and let's go ahead and take a listen. All right, and welcome to this week's version of the interview. I am so honored to have MotoManTV with us this week. He has over 100,000 YouTube subscribers. He calls himself an ordinary car guy doing extraordinary things. He's been on YouTube now for over 6 years, has a background actually as a stand-up comic, currently lives in Los Angeles, California. MotoMan, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Dusty. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm just excited to have you on the show. We talked pre-show, and I am extremely excited to hear your insight on this YouTube business that we call. So question number one for you is this. How did you get started on YouTube?
It's a very funny story because I didn't want to go on YouTube. When I first got started, basically my background is a stand-up comic, as you had mentioned. And I had moved from New York City, which is where I'm from, to Los Angeles, didn't tell any of my friends what I was doing at all, and was just like, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but didn't. I always wanted to get into comedy. Who does that for a living?
Right.
And then finally, I was in technology for many, many years as a career, and finally the technology boom went bust. And I'm like, okay, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but didn't, and now let's finally do it. So I moved. I picked up in October of 2006 and moved out to Los Angeles. And literally the second night I was here, I was on stage telling jokes and started working my way up to larger clubs. Like literally, I started in more open mics that were more like group therapy than they were comedy.
Right.
And then made my way up to larger clubs like the Improv and the Comedy Store. And then in that process, I got offered a writing gig, and then the writing gig turned into like, well, what do you want to write about? And I'm like, I have no idea. And they said, well, what do you like? And I said, well, I like cars. And they said, okay, write about cars. But I didn't know that if you wrote about cars, the car manufacturers give you a new car every week. And I'm like, what the hell was I in technology for?
Right.
When I could have gotten a new car doing this, I was working basically to support a car addict. So through that, I just looked for more distribution for my writing. And I found this very large men's lifestyle site, and they were like, we're not looking for writers, but we see in the cars and we see you doing the stand-up. How about a series? And that's how MotoMan actually got started. So we actually were greenlit and had dollars, not a lot, but we had dollars coming in for each episode when we got started. And then I have a friend of mine from my old tech days. He's very well accomplished in the tech world. And, he's talking to me. He goes, you got to go on YouTube. And I'm like, I don't want to go on YouTube. Like cat videos. I don't want to have my video of I'll make it up, of a Ford Fiesta sitting next to some guy who frankly doesn't have high a production quality on YouTube. And he's like, you're a moron. Call this guy. And he gave me a name of a guy at YouTube and do whatever he says. And that's how I got on YouTube.
So you had the aspiration of being a stand-up comic, which then led to you writing, which then led for you having a job on this this website. And then this guy told you, hey, look, there's a site called YouTube. You would be perfect for that. And then basically once he told you to contact the guy over at YouTube or Google, you contacted him, and then that's the origin story of MotoMan, right?
Sort of. Let me just clarify. None of this was a regular job. That's a huge thing I think everybody in your audience needs to understand. Like I still am a stand-up comic. I still do shows. I do more speaking engagements now. But none of this is you have a 9-to-5 job and get a W-2 paycheck.
Right.
It is, you are basically scrounging.
Right.
You sell a story, you are working for yourself. So actually my production company, I own and I produce it. And even back then, from day one, even now, it's still, you have to continually work.
What I like to call it, MotoMan, the word that I use is hustle. Sometimes you just have to hustle.
So I'm assuming you are a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan.
Yes, yeah.
I'm a huge Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and it's all about the hustle.
It is all about the hustle. So basically, you are a comic who loves cars.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. That's great. So question number 2 is this.
Well, the way I put it is my rocket scientist father gave me the disease of cars.
That's awesome. So question number 2 is, how has YouTube helped your business or help you create a business?
I would say it has helped me create a sustainable business that I control.
Okay.
Because what I do is somewhat different than a lot of the YouTube world does, in that I work with very large multinational corporations.
Okay.
And as a result, you need to prove your value almost to them, because it's like a chicken and the egg thing. You know, do you get the cars first or do you get the audience first? Because when you go to the car manufacturer and say, hey, I'm doing a show on YouTube, Bentley is not going to give you a car.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
You need to have some sort of audience and create an audience, and the audience is the cars are commensurate with your audience. So the more views you have, theoretically, you get more access to cars. That's not always the case. It is a bit of a high school popularity contest, if I'm being 100% honest.
Okay.
And then there's also the type of presenter or performer you are, and then there's also who is your audience. I'm very fortunate in that my audience is a little bit older, it's 25 to 55. So as a result, we have the good fortune of featuring Rolls Royces and Bentleys and Porsches and Lamborghinis on the show. But if my audience was 20-year-olds, it probably wouldn't feature some of those cars.
Right. Now, how are you monetizing this, MotoMan? Is it sponsored videos? Is it affiliate marketing? Are you just getting these vehicles and promoting them on your videos, and then they're paying you a lump sum for that specific video? So how are you making this a profitable business?
This is, then we have to segue back to our friend Gary Vaynerchuk.
Right.
How I make money is hustle.
Right.
Constantly hustle. So the best way I like to describe it, which I'm stealing this term from other people, it's a lot of hoses into one bucket. So I make money off of the AdSense revenue, which is the ad money that comes in from Google that sells against your videos.
Sure.
I make money against the actual YouTube views. I make money on speaking engagements, because keep in mind, I've got 100,000 subs. We do a couple of million views a month. So there is now I'm considered an expert in my field. So I get paid by manufacturers, or I get paid by other industries. Like, for example, Bose just hired me to be their spokesman at CES to do a live stream for 4 different products. So I get paid from those speaking engagements or those endorsement deals. And then I also do, believe it or not, I work with the LA Auto Show, and every time the show comes into town, I actually do tours for financial analysts, for industry folks, for that kind of stuff, to give them kind of an inside SWOT analysis of the car world.
Right. And I think what you just explained is basically the story of 99% of the YouTubers out there.
Absolutely.
When it comes to monetizing your content, YouTube is your home base, and it may be where that hose started out. But eventually what happens is you realize the AdSense, the ads that are on top of your videos, are not enough, or they're not sufficient enough to support you or your family, and you then have to build a business around YouTube. Now, YouTube is a great platform in that building around YouTube, you then open yourself up to a ton of different opportunities, like you're saying, doing that Bose thing at CES, and it was a great analogy that you said there at the beginning, a bunch of hoses into one bucket. It's true. As a technology video creator myself, I do affiliate marketing and I do sponsor videos and I do different things that supplement the AdSense money, because people oftentimes think that you're getting rich on YouTube just by the advertisement. That is completely false and inaccurate.
I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, Dusty, but let me bring up the other side of it, and this is kind of the dirty side of what people don't understand when they're trying to get into the YouTube world or really create anything like this.
Absolutely.
The dirty side, number one, is I've been doing this 6 years. I get a couple of million views a month, but the reality is it wasn't until, I want to say, the past 10 months that the AdSense revenue and the YouTube revenue actually put MotoMan in the black. That's only one part of it.
Right.
The other part of it, and this is the very dirty secret that no one tells you, I live like a rat. Yes, I drive Bentleys and Ferraris, but I knew part of the reason I picked up Dusty back in 2006 and moved from New York and moved to Los Angeles. I had a beautiful apartment in one of the greatest areas of the city and loved it, and it killed me to give it up. But I knew if I was going to get into entertainment, and that's exactly what YouTube is, I knew if I was going to get into entertainment, I had to drastically lower the cost of my machine, meaning what it cost me to keep my life going.
Right.
What I underestimated, Dusty, and you probably appreciate this, is how long you have to make that sacrifice.
Right.
So do the math. I got off the plane on October 3rd of 2006, okay? And I still had consulting work in the technology world for up until the economy fell off a cliff in 2008, and then all hell broke loose.
Right.
And so then I started MotoMan officially July 8th of 2009 is when it got greenlit from this large men's lifestyle site. But we didn't make a dime on it until January of 2010, but that didn't cover anywhere near the production, let alone me. So I've been doing this for 6 years, and it wasn't until 10 months ago that it pays my abnormally low expenses.
Right. And I think that's another thing that's a good thing to hit on is, I preach all the time, make sure that you are passionate about what you're doing, and you cannot get into this content creation solely to make money. In the fact of, you want to be passionate about what you're doing, so when you're not making money, when there's no funds coming in, you can still stay consistent, because consistency is one of, in my opinion, the biggest keys to being successful on YouTube. You can't post one video, per month, and then post, 4 per week, and then expect your audience to come back to watch your content, because they're not going to.
I would argue consistency is the biggest.
Yeah, consistency is key. Creating a schedule that people can expect your content on a certain day of the week is extremely important. That's something with this podcast. I started this podcast over a year ago, put out an episode or two, had some good traction, had some stuff happen personally, didn't upload an episode for a while, and I'm still catching up with, the inconsistency of posting episodes of this audio show. And then it's even more so when it comes to video content. So I think if you're listening to this episode today, one of the things I want to preach on is consistency. Make sure, even if it's just one video a week, you don't have to be that crazy person uploading 3 or 4 videos a day. As long as you're creating consistent content per month, I think you're going to be able to build that community.
I think it's more than per month. I think in order to build the community, you got to be uploading at least twice a month, and that's going to take you a longer time than if you were doing 4 times, at least once a week.
I agree, 100%.
And the thing is, it's important here, and we're both saying the same thing. Whatever you're doing, I don't care your technology. I'm cars. You could be cooking. You could be travel. I don't care what it is. you absolutely positively need to think, what can you realistically deliver? What's the consistency you can realistically deliver? Stick with it until you can increase from there. Like I started with, I was just whenever we put something out. Then I got very consistent on once a week. Then I got very consistent on twice a week. Now we're consistent on 3 times a week.
Right. It's extremely important to create that schedule and to stick with it long term. You're exactly right. So question number 3, MotoMan, is this. What is something that you wish someone had told you when you first started out on YouTube? So if you could go back and something that you wish someone would have told you when you started uploading videos to YouTube.
I think I got to go back to that sacrifice thing. And I don't know if anybody could tell you that and you get it. Like there are sacrifices that I have made that I'm not even going to share with you. They're kind of so terrifying that I wish someone had shared what it really means to sacrifice to create success on this platform. And I don't think anybody is quite prepared for that.
So maybe expand upon that a little bit. I mean, I know you don't want to share specific instances, but when you're talking sacrifice or you're talking monetarily, obviously, like we talked about earlier.
Well, this monetary is very simple. Like you're not, let me give you a couple of examples. Money is one, obviously. Like your friends, they work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever it is. And then on Friday and Saturday night, they go out and they have a ball. They go to the movies or whatever it is. You are not going to the movies with them. You will always be editing. It will not stop. It is like the post office. It just keeps on coming. If you want to be consistent, you will always be editing. And the dark sides of this are very few people get those sacrifices. So if you're married, Dusty, so you're a bit of a different place. But like if you're a person that has a girlfriend or a boyfriend, most of your girlfriends or boyfriends are not going to understand the sacrifices you're making, and there is a very high chance of failure in your relationship. That's one thing. The other thing is you need to understand what is a necessity in life and what is a luxury in life. And I don't mean like here I am, a guy driving Ferraris, is telling you about necessities and luxuries, but you have to decide what is not negotiable in your life. Like, for example, for me, I knew that I had Sunday mornings, even though I was busy all the time, Sunday mornings, I just like to go to the church I go to. And that was one thing I had to do. Or, for example, I am a distance runner. And I don't care what happens, I need to run every morning because, frankly, it's my therapy. But everything else is a luxury. And so, like, for example, I moved from a place that I loved in LA to a place I don't love so much because it's way below my means of what I was making as a YouTuber or where I was making money from other areas. And people underestimate there is a huge value to living below your means. Helps you sleep at night, especially when you are trying to create something bigger than yourself. And this is where, like we talked about Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the other people, it's a book I've read, is a couple of his books, but the big one I would suggest is The Total Money Makeover from Dave Ramsey. I am a huge disciple of Dave Ramsey because now I'm probably going off on a money tangent right now, but what you learn from a book like that is to live below your means. And there's a reason why, not just because he wants you to be a cheapskate. It's because if you want something bigger out of life, I don't care if it's YouTube or if you want to be a movie star or if you want to create, a sewing business, you need to get your own finances in order to be able to go out and kill it, hustle in the world. So you're not stressing over money.
No, I completely agree with you. And on the same note of all of that, I find it extremely hard sometimes, as you were talking about sacrifices, it's really hard to explain to other people, normal 9-to-5 people, what you do. So if you create YouTube content, it's real easy to say, I'm a YouTuber. Well, that to the normal person, there's nothing against them. They just don't understand it. I know I was at a family outing not too long ago, and I was trying to explain to a family member exactly what I did, and it was extremely difficult for me to come up with something, the verbiage that would help them understand what I do. And at times, you're going to get a lot of feedback or maybe some flack from your family about, are you really doing that? Is that a real job? And the thing that I would motivate you with, I know there's a lot of doom and gloom here in this conversation, but the thing is that I would motivate you in saying that, yes, it is a real job. Yes, you can make a living from doing it. MotoMan and myself and many others are testament to that. And you don't have to be, PewDiePie or somebody with 20-something million subscribers. That number is just a facade as far as, subscribers to money. That really has nothing to do with it.
Oh, it means nothing. I don't understand the YouTube, why they so focus on subscribers, because you get a very low, and I want to take a minute here to point this out to people that are starting. I've got 109,000 subscribers. You've got 100,000 subscribers. And I don't know what you're seeing, but the best case scenario, the best, is you put a video out, maybe if you are lucky, maybe 10% of those subscribers will watch the video. Maybe.
I completely agree with that. And see, my channel is what I call search-based, which means that over 60 to 75% of the views on my videos are people who are searching for how to do something. And because of that, I may have a video blow up with over a couple 100,000 views, and 90% of those views are people who are not subscribed to my channel. Now, on the flip side of that, I do want to urge you to create a community. You want those people who are going to be interactive on your videos when you press upload, and the people who are going to comment and get that video out there for you. But don't get so caught up with, I've got to have 100,000 subscribers. I've got to have 50,000. Don't worry about that right now. And eventually, if you create great content that has value, you're going to get the subscribers. And you can see that with MotoMan's channel and my channel, and anybody who's successful on YouTube, you can see that. So transitioning into the next question is this: are there any YouTube tools or software or hardware that you use on a regular basis that you would recommend to our audience that you just couldn't live without?
Well, the easy answer to that is the analytics. I'm kind of addicted to the analytics, but not for the same reasons that the YouTube folks will tell you. Like, for example, the YouTube folks will tell you that you should watch your analytics and see what your audience likes, and then do more of that. I like to consider myself a creative person. I'm a comic, and I feel like people who are in entertainment, people like myself, have a responsibility in that they are shaping the conversation. They are kind of like the cruise directors for the audience. So if you're constantly looking to the audience to direct you, there's an old saying, you can, what is that saying? It's, I'm trying to remember it exactly, but it's something to the effect of, if you try to fashion yourself to everybody, no one's going to like you. So you need to understand where you're going. But back to the analytics, I feel like the analytics kind of help you shape things like it helped us shape the how we set up the episodes. Like, for example, I'm very, 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 very proud of the fact that we have stupidly high retention. Like, we have these very long episodes, 10 to 15 minutes, which in YouTube terms is an eternity. But our audience retention is like 65%, meaning 65% of people that come in watch all the way through. Over 470 episodes, our average watch time, and these could be like 1-minute episodes up to 20-minute episodes, our average watch time is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That's off the charts. And that, by us looking at the analytics and seeing where people were falling off, we understood a lot, and we were able to pace the episodes a bit differently. So if you look at an episode today from an episode 5 years ago, yes, I would argue I'm a better performer. I would argue you're probably a better performer now than when you first started. But the way in which they are organized is different, because we spent a lot of time looking at the audience retention. And one of the things that you and I have to make sure we touch upon is, yes, view count is a big thing, but audience retention is now the biggest piece of the analytics that drive the algorithm to drive more views to your channel or video.
I completely agree with all of that, and I would urge everyone who is just now starting on YouTube to go check out the analytics and see what your view retention is, see what the views per day, and don't get caught up in the numbers like what we were talking about earlier, but see what your demographics are. And there's so much that you can dive into in the analytics tool of YouTube, and it can really help you to not really tell you what to create, but to help you and guide you on maybe where you need to go to improve to get better numbers and all of that.
That's a great way of putting it, Dusty.
So the next question I have for you is this. If you could give one piece of advice to an emerging YouTuber or someone who's wanting to get started on YouTube, what would that be?
What is it you have a burning desire to tell the world? Understand what that is, and you will be successful. We talked about this a little bit, Dusty. I used to be in technology. And it's cool. I loved what I did. I worked for Apple Computer. I was working there when Steve Jobs first came back, and I was one of the first guys that set up the store within a store concept. That remember Comp USA? That was the original Apple store back in the day. That was their trial run. I did cool stuff at Apple, and then I worked at a company called Prodigy Internet, if you remember that. And then I worked at a startup. I was living overseas, and I worked at a startup that invented something called location-based services, which you today now know as apps. I was doing really cool shit. We invented. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. We talked about this. I was creating the original games for mobile phones, J2ME, not smartphones, J2ME, back in 1999. Really cool stuff. The reality is, as cool as it was, it basically supported my car habit. And I wasn't that bad. And I wanted to get into comedy. And I had a burning desire to make people laugh, to learn about other people. I had a burning desire to talk about cars. And it took me a very, very, very too long. Like I would argue I wasted a lot of time in figuring out what I really wanted to be doing in my life. And it's not like you just come up and sit down and say, it's going to be this, and then stick this exact plan. And Dusty, you can appreciate this. The plan is going to evolve over time. Like when I first got back from England and was living in New York again, I thought for sure it was going to be just doing stand-up and doing college tours and that's it. And then it evolved to stand-up, and then that evolved to doing all of this work on MotoMan, and then it evolved to YouTube, and now it's speaking engagements, corporate gigs. A bunch of different things that I do now, and it's still evolving. And so you got to understand that what you come up with today is going to change over time. You just need to understand the basic of this is the general direction I want to go, and really try to explore it. The best piece of advice I got in the acting world, I was very fortunate to study with Jeffrey Tambor when I first got started. And Jeffrey has this great piece of advice. And if you've seen him on TV, he's the same guy in person. His advice is be willing to do it badly. Like you and I'm sure, we're perfectionists. For people who want to get started in this YouTube world, what they're doing is they're waiting until they can do it perfect, until everything is just right. Well, guess what? It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be just right. Be willing to do it badly, and then you just get better over time.
Right. A lot of times it's the method of, throw something at the wall and kind of see what sticks.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's a lot to that. Obviously, you want to create quality content, but what I'm hearing you say is completely what I agree with, and that's that you want to find your passion.
Yes.
You want to create that valuable content and just do it. There's a lot of people out there talking about doing a lot of things.
Yes.
But there are very few people who are actually seeing through what they're talking about and actually doing that. So I completely agree with you there. Now, The next question has a little bit of foresight in it, so maybe me and you can I can already tell you and I have gotten into some great conversations already. So the next question is, what is next for your YouTube channel specifically, and where do you see YouTube going as a whole, as a platform?
Well, let me tell you one of the things. The next thing has kind of already happened. If you remember, I already told you guys about my background was in building products in the technology world. And the last stop in my technology world was from 1999 to 2006, really 2008 until the economy fell off a cliff, was mobile platforms. So I always knew getting into it, I wanted to create an app for the show. And so what we did, I went back to the people that I've worked with over the years, and we took a year to develop this app because I wanted it. We already had a brand out there. So I actually did take the time to get it right because it was more about, we've learned about how to build an audience and how to keep an audience entertained. How do we do that in another platform, on the mobile platform? So it was more than just, let's build a player for iOS and Android and just throw it out, just get anything out there. We wanted to build a different experience. So what we did was we took all the learning from that audience retention stuff I told you about, which came from those analytics. And then we took all the learning from my mobile world. And then we took all the learning, because part of this, Dusty, and we haven't covered, is there's YouTube, and YouTube, it's really not a video platform, it's a social platform. And for you to be successful on this, you need to be an expert on social platforms. So I took the learning, and I wasn't. Like, I still personally do not have a Facebook page. I personally don't do Twitter, any of that stuff. So I came into it as a disadvantage because I personally never wanted to do that. Well, now I've become an expert at it, and I took that learning and applied all of that combined with all the other learning into this now in this now mobile app, which has a lot of downloads and is an entirely new experience for our viewers, which I promote in the shows.
That's awesome. Now, on the flip side of that, where do you see YouTube going as a platform?
I see this video platform business getting a bit fragmented, to be very honest with you. I think YouTube is the 800-pound gorilla in the space and will continue to be the 800-pound gorilla in the space as long as it continues to innovate on basically a free platform model. I think as they try to get into this red space, I think it's a good experiment, but there are other brands that have become the YouTube of the freemium model, meaning charging. So I feel like the people that are listening to this, they probably already subscribe to Netflix. They probably already subscribe to HBO Go or something like that. I think the paid-for model is going to be more successful in the Netflix, Hulu, and the individual premium channel, HBO and Showtime, over YouTube. And I don't see YouTube being as successful as those guys. Like, the question I still don't have an answer to is, like, PewDiePie has a movie now on Red. People are used to watching PewDiePie for free. I don't know if that's going to translate into dollars, where I'm willing to pay, and when I say I mean generic person, I'm willing to pay to watch Homeland, which a lot of people apparently are. So I don't know where that goes. And for us, I feel like there's going to be a derivation of our product, meaning MotoMan, that will need to make either a different product or a derivation of the product that will end up on those platforms as well.
I agree, and I think you've got a lot of foresight, and I personally am excited to see where YouTube goes as a platform. I am along for the ride, and I am ready to go wherever they need to go. I think they're doing a good thing with YouTube Red. It's a good experiment, like you said. Keeping the free model and then having the premium model is, again, at the end of the day, it is a business, and they're getting hundreds and thousands of hours of video uploaded to their servers. So they do have a lot, and they are Google, and I understand they have more money than anybody in the world. I understand that, but it still is a business, and they're still out to make a profit. So we have to understand that as well. But YouTube and Google are great, and they've been great to me, and I'm just excited to see where the platform goes in the future. So the last question in closing is this. This is a kind of a fun question. What are some guilty pleasure YouTube channels that you watch on YouTube?
Now you're really going to expose me, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna embrace this one. I have an unhealthy addiction to big cats. Like I could watch Discovery Channel for 24 hours straight, watching big cats, like lions, tigers, leopards, that kind of stuff. Like I find the channels, Discovery Channel, or people who upload. This is a guy, John something or other, that lived on one of these South African, not farms, but like preserves, where there's people like walk with big cats. Where I watched this guy, Kevin Richardson, who also lives in South Africa, and the guy, like, he goes out to this preserve and he just chills with grown lions, like he naps with them. And I'm like, I watch it and I'm in disbelief that this guy does this. So that is a total guilty pleasure of mine. Another guilty pleasure of mine, anyone that knows my show or follows me on Instagram, and here's a guilty plug, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But anybody that follows me on Instagram knows I'm a ridiculous aviation geek, like stupid aviation geek. The longest single relationship I've had in my life, good, bad, or indifferent, is with one airline. So, like, I watch plane videos like they're going out of style. Like, I just watched a documentary on Donald Trump's personal 757, or I watched a documentary on the 707 aircraft, or I watched these, like, people, you know how like I review cars. There are people who like review the business class seat of Singapore Airlines from LA to like Singapore. I'll watch that kind of stuff.
Right. That's one of the reasons why I personally love YouTube, and I feel like I say this every episode, is that you never know what you can find. Like, you get into the deep bowels of YouTube, and you click on a suggested video after suggested video, and next thing you know, you're watching something that you're like, man, I cannot believe I can find information on the video that I'm watching. It's just amazing the type of content that's being created and curated on YouTube right now. And it's just such a fun time, and there's so much stuff you can learn. If you want to learn how to fix something, you don't have to be a plumber anymore. You just get on YouTube and say, how to fix my sink, and you can find a guy on there showing you how to do that. Yeah. So it's just amazing.
Yeah,
so
sadly, I use YouTube for like post-production help. That was right. I wish I didn't have to do.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So, Motoman, I just want you to know how much we here at the YouTube Creators Hub community appreciate your time, and you're such an intriguing individual, and it was so fun to hear about your backstory, where you're at on YouTube, and where you see YouTube going. So we appreciate you hanging out with us today.
Dusty, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap on episode 9 of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on iTunes. We're on over at Stitcher as well. I publish a video version of the show on my YouTube channel. It's Technology Guru on YouTube. And as always, guys, thank you so much for listening to my content. I really hope you gathered some information and some advice from what you heard here on the show. Don't forget to support us over on Patreon. Hit that Audible link to get a free download of a book. And until next time, guys, keep creating that content.
You've been listening to the YouTube Creators Podcast. We want to thank you and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as support us on Patreon for great perks, such as having your YouTube channel featured on the show and a link on our website. Until next time, keep uploading those videos.